Hey, Daren Martin, CEO and founder of the Global Company Culture Association, and I have been looking forward for weeks to speaking to the great, iconic Stan Richards. Stan Richards started the Richards Group in Dallas, Texas many years ago. We'll talk about that. You were actually just passing through.
I was.
And ended up staying, and we're so fortunate that you did. But has just built an incredibly iconic agency that is known all over the world, has produced some great work. Art Director Hall of Fame. I mean, the accolades are, many. But what I'm really excited about is Stan has built this company based on company culture and what he calls the Peaceable Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And so, I've read his book, one of absolute best books, one of my top favorites now on company culture, and I read quite a few of them. But I'm excited about this little conversation, Stan.
Pleased to have you here.
Yeah, great to meet you. So talk about the Peaceable Kingdom. My wife was asking, what is that? What does that mean?
Well, the title itself, the Peaceable Kingdom, that comes from a painting that was done a long time ago that you may be familiar with. It's where lions and lambs and all sorts of animals are lying down together and getting along very well.
Right.
And that's the appellation that we put on this place because of the way we operate. And fundamental to everything that we do is a belief that we have no less important people, that we are all equal in importance. Now, we're not all paid the same, we don't all do the same things, but we are all treated with the same level of respect, no matter what our function is or how much money we're paid.
Which is just in and of itself fundamentally different from the way most corporations operate.
Absolutely.
I mean, even our lexicon is so outdated. Bosses, up and down the chain. I mean, you think about the ways we talk about work, and you said, hey, I want to start an agency that doesn't mimic or mirror any of that.
Yeah,
because this has traditionally been a very political, a very intense kind of environment. So you did that in some very unique and particular ways. One is quite obvious as we're looking around here, no walls. Talk about that when you moved into your first location and you went around with a screwdriver and took the doors off and knocked out some walls.
That's right.
What's the purpose of that?
Well, part of it goes back to my only experience in working in somebody else's agency. And that was very early in my career when I first came to Dallas. And it was a very siloed place. And there were always little wars that were going on between disciplines. The creatives were always at war with the brand management people. Brand management people were always at war with the strategic people, who were always at war with the media people.
Right.
And so all of the functions had little skirmishes going on constantly with people of another discipline. So I watched that and I thought about how unproductive that was, because that was really keeping a lid on the level of the work, on the amount of care that people put into the work, and the fact that a lot of the time people were spent being unhappy, and that isn't productive anyway.
And you were one of them. You took this cush job, you got an unbelievable salary, that was going on, and you lasted all of a year because you honor your commitments, right? Yes. But you were miserable there. And I wonder if you hadn't had that experience, if some of the ideas of knowing, here's how I want to do it, may not have gelled quite as quickly.
They may not have, but that was a galvanizing force, and it set up so many of the things that we would do differently. For instance, we don't sit by function or by department.
You just mixed, scattered all over the...
commingle all of the disciplines in this whole 8 floors that we occupy. And so nobody's next door neighbor has somebody doing precisely the same thing that he or she does.
Right. And that way people mix it up, you get the functions, because the one of the deaths of every company is called silos. And every time I talk to a leader, we've got so many silos, how do we eliminate silos? You really set it up geographically to not have silos in the first place.
Well, think of it this way. I'm trained as an art director. That's what I've done my whole working life. If I, as an art director, am sitting next to a media buyer, she does things that are entirely different from the things that I do. But I've recognized she works as hard as I do.
Right.
She cares just as much about her end of the craft as I care about my end of the craft. We can get along. We don't have to be at war with each other. And it's that level of respect that comes in both directions, depending on who's sitting on either side of me. And it works exceedingly well. We just don't have any of that stuff. And a big part of it is how we handle it geographically.
So you've also done some very interesting things, like no titles, no real, positional. Obviously, I introduced myself as a CEO and the founder. You're like, cut that crap out. We don't, why do we need all those kind of identifiers?
And we don't.
And so how do you differentiate, it's much more, it sounds like, by function than it is.
It is, one of the things that I did was, contrary to the way advertising agencies normally work, there may be as many as 7 levels in a typical large advertising agency. And so there are a lot of people who are charging time against a client who aren't really making contributions because they're up in the food chain.
Right.
There's also the problem of, as a creative, if you take a typical agency, the bottom level would be art directors and writers. The second level would be creative group heads. The third level would be executive creative directors. The next level would be executive creative directors, and there can be as many as 2 more on top of that. Well, what happens is that the work that's done by that art director writer team at the bottom of that food chain has to go through all sorts of approval processes.
Right.
And each time, the people who created it lose a little bit of the control of it.
Yep.
And it takes much of the joy out of doing the work because by the time it's finished through all of those layers, it doesn't look anything like it did when it was created.
Sure,
So,
and not in an improved way.
No,
It's
not.
a really degenerative process. It's just
Absolutely.
pick away, and
So what I did was I said we will never have more than 3 layers in any discipline. So in creative, it's art directors and writers at the beginner level. It's group heads at the next level up, and there's me.
yeah.
That's it. So there are not a lot of approvals that it has to go through before it gets to the client.
Wow. So Jeff Hopfer, who's how we met, has worked for you for 30 whatever plus years.
Right. Yeah.
And he was showing me around the other day. We went to lunch, and he was showing me. And when he said, "This is Stan's office," I didn't know whether to shout or start crying, because I'm like, wow, finally a leader who gets it. I heard about a company that the CEO of multi-billion-dollar oil and gas company, you're not allowed to get on the elevator with the CEO. Okay.
Really?
And then someone was telling me about another company that they were familiar with, that if you did get on the elevator with the CEO, you couldn't look at him or talk to him.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. And we wonder why we have a 15% engagement rate across the globe, right? 85% of people say they hate their jobs.
Yeah.
And it's not the case here at the Richards Group.
Yeah.
In fact, you've had people leave, because that happens, right?
Sure.
They take other opportunities. But you've had a whole lot of people leave and then come back.
Those are boomerangs, and we have lots of them.
Boomerangs. I love it.
Yeah.
So you call, if you're a Richards Group, groupers?
Yeah, that's colloquially, yes.
Okay. All right. So, and you have one of the things that I say is, if you want to really build a great companies should operate a lot more like, I don't know, secret societies, fraternities, where there's a language, there's a sense about what it's like to be a part of it.
Right.
And that people really feel connected to it. They're proud. They wear it as a badge of honor. And it looks like you guys have really done that in spades.
We have, and in an industry where traditionally in advertising, people change jobs every 2 years.
Right.
That's how they get ahead.
Right.
Well, that disadvantages a client every time that happens, because just about the time that somebody really learns his business, they're gone.
Yeah.
Start over with somebody new. And so we don't have that problem to deal with.
Your attrition rate is unheard of
It is.
in the industry. I mean,
Yes.
people just don't stay that long. But it's because of some of the kinds of things we're describing. So one of the highlights, there's a bunch of them. I'll have to show you my book later, but it's all marked up. I hope you're not offended by that. I got to get you to sign it, by the way.
Sure.
But you say that people are respected for their prowess, I believe it was, not their position.
That's right.
Most companies, it's, oh, well, he's the VP of, okay, so then we should listen to them. Or around here, it's about, do you do great work?
Yes.
You know, hey, you won that account, you did that thing. Oh, you're the one that did. Oh, okay. Now respect goes up based on the merits of what you're actually bringing to the company.
It's actually even more basic than that. There's a clear understanding among all of us that nobody will ever be treated with a lack of respect.
Mm.
And that pervades everything we do and all of the relationships that we have.
And you've had a few people that didn't follow that rule that are no longer here. You talk about
Yes.
A couple in the book.
Yeah.
How do you get your name on a door at the Richards Group?
Well, all of our rooms are named.
Right.
And they're named after the people who worked here longest.
Right.
So the problem with that, and also that's a point of great pride for the people who...
Sure, if you get a name on it, it's not their office because we don't have offices, but it's on a conference room, right?
That's right, yes. And I can tell you that those people who have their names on rooms, whenever they bring their family up here, they always go by that room.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh, I bet.
And it's a way for them to demonstrate to their family that we think a lot of them.
Right.
The problem with it is that our retention rate is so high, and we only have a limited number of rooms that we can put names on. You have to be here 22 and a half years to get your name on the room.
It's like the cowboy ring, right? I mean, there's only so much real estate, although now with Jerry World, it's a lot more real
That's
estate.
right.
I love the story about, what was his last name? That his dad you knew from business and you hired him, and then they were looking around the new place and his name was on the door. Coates. His last name was Coates. And you got, there was all this furor because you go, this isn't Stan. This isn't the way we operate.
Right.
And I'm telling a story inside a story, but I think one of the things I really respect and appreciate is you've built a culture that is self-policing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're so consistent that there's not that, oh, well, we'll make an exception for this person over here. So they were outraged. Why does this Coates guy get his name on the, only to find out it was the coat closet.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't take his family by to show them that,
No, not
that
at all.
door. All right, so what have you learned in the agency's been around?
I finished my college years in 1953.
Okay.
I operated a freelance design practice for a little over 20 years after that. And most of our work was annual reports and graphics and things like that. But we did a lot of work for advertising agencies. Then, about 45 years ago, one of our annual report clients called and asked would we be taking over their advertising responsibility. Well, at the time we were all designers. We didn't have account management, we didn't have media, we didn't have planning, we didn't have any of the functions of an agency beyond the creative function. But it was the kind of opportunity that was hard for me to pass up. And there was considerable risk involved because if we, a lot of our clients were advertising agencies. We
Right.
took on projects for them.
And that was going to all go away.
That would all disappear the moment we declared ourselves to be an advertising agency.
Right.
But it was the right time to make that change, and it has been a very rewarding experience ever since.
Then you landed a key client, Mercantile Bank, which is...
That's the client.
Was that Woodall Rogers or who the great Dallas? I think
Gene Bishop was the
Gene Bishop, okay.
Yeah.
And that was a deal changer.
It was.
And really gave you that leg up and that boost to get the agency started.
Right. And they were our client for 12 years. Did a lot of great work. They got a lot of visibility and a lot of notoriety. And then, unfortunately, mid-'80s, all of the banks in Texas, because of an oil bust and a real estate bust, all the banks went down.
Yeah.
And our client was one of them. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, our biggest and most favorite client is gone.
But by then you were already up and running, and you guys had established so much credibility. So when and we won't belabor this, people can read about it in the book. It's well worth the read. But you came to Dallas, you were on your way passing through to LA.
Yeah.
And you met a couple of people here. Neiman Marcus had a really profound impact on you. But I remember two people. One person told you, your work is horrible. When you showed him your work,
Right.
Son, go into the military. I'm still laughing about that. Like, your stuff is bad. I mean, I've never seen anything this bad. And I love your description of him with the gumshoe and the whole thing. But then someone else said, you know what? Your work is phenomenal. It represents what we're seeing going on in other parts of the country. We're not ready for it yet in Dallas. I don't have a position for you. But he said some words that kind of changed your life. I think you ought to think about, because it's going to change, and you ought to think about, starting your own thing here.
Yeah. Well, that's true. The guy who told me that my work was bad, at that point, I promised myself, because he was an absolute jerk, and I promised myself I would never work for that guy. He was rude, he was nasty, and I will have nothing to do with him in the future. Some years later, one of his partners in their agency came to me, called me and said, I watched your work for a long time, I'd love to have you working with us. Can you take on a project with me? And I said, no. And he said, why? I said, I'm not going to work with that guy. I won't say his name, ever. And he said, well, if I promise you that you will have no contact with him, will you take on this project for me? And that was a guy near Timberland who was a client for many years after that.
Yeah.
Absolutely great guy. We had a wonderful relationship. But I never did work for that other guy.
Which just goes to show the people you're getting the advice from, because there are some people who would have walked away at that time and said, well, I guess I'm just not very good. And we would have all lost because of that.
It was not as if I was going to be affected by that, because I'd gone to the best design school in America.
Of course.
I had done very well there and competed successfully with all of my classmates all the way through school. And so I knew I was good, and he was wrong.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to think about it.
You had that confidence, and not to mention the fact that you looked around and saw the work they were producing as an agency,
right.
And you would have never done that quality of work at that
right.
bad level, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about gum real quickly, because I love that.
I don't remember that story.
Or the what I may have, it's gratuitous.
Oh.
Gratuitous.
I would have to look it up.
Yeah, here, let me find it. Stan, I'm saying when I reread my book, which I brought you a copy of, by the way, Company of Owners, and I said, wait, I wrote that? Wow. Gratuitous use of management. You have worked very hard to not, I love how you describe what you do. You do very little what most, quote, heads of companies do. You
Right.
don't spend a lot of time doing the fussy, busy work.
No. First of all, I don't believe that the people here need to be managed.
Love it.
And it's that simple. We hire them because they're really good at what they do. We hire a lot of kids out of school because I'd rather hire a kid out of school rather than somebody who has picked up a lot of bad habits and other advertising agencies. And those people don't need to be managed. They need to be mentored and guided, not managed.
I agree with you 100%. I wrote a book called The Company of Owners, and people will ask me, well, how do you create a company where everyone acts like an owner? I say, well, it's very simple. Treat them like owners.
Yeah.
Treat them like adults.
Yes.
And companies who get that get the discretionary effort, and how much pressure is that off you having to handle every little thing? I mean, if you've got conflict, you tell them, you guys, gals, work it out.
That's right.
If you're coming to me, it's, you're probably not going to like the response you get.
That's exactly.
And this ecosystem really kind of manages itself.
Yes.
Without all of the regulatory, and you don't have big, thick books about policies and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's the way we operate.
Yes.
So I've been talking a lot lately about you do not want an organization, you want an organism.
Yeah,
and an organism is living and breathing. And I'm just so blown away that you created that here so many years ago, and it's paid off handsomely. I mean, multi-billion dollar agency, as I said, very well respected, new building. How many floors is this building?
Well, the building is 18 floors. The first 10 floors are parking.
Yeah.
More than we actually need, but
Yeah.
the Dallas Building Code required that would be the level of parking. And then we occupy the 8 floors above that.
Okay, so only one other thing I want to mention is the whole layout of the building with the stairwell. Talk about the stairwell and the importance of that.
Stairwell is really important to us, and it has a dual function. The first, I'm a great believer in casual contact between people. I think people should move around the state, the space, and it gives them an opportunity to greet each other as they walk around. So if you sit way over in that corner of the building and you have to go to the bathroom, you have a long walk to that corner of the building. If we built this building to lease, right in the middle of every floor, you'd have the restrooms and the elevators.
Wow.
But we didn't build it to lease, we built it for us. So all of that stuff is way over on that side of that corner of the building. So you have a long walk.
Right.
And if you are headed for the bathroom, you're going to pass 2, 3, 4 people on the way there. And what's going to happen? You're going to get to say hi.
Yeah.
And if you're smart, it's hi followed by a name,
Right.
which demonstrates respect for the people that you work with. On your way back, you're going to pass 2 or 3 others. You would say hi to them as well. Sometimes you save a meeting because you just run into somebody that you have some business with. You have a 20-second conversation,
Right.
and you've saved a meeting.
So you built a place for that to happen, and then people don't take the elevators when they're going between these floors. They go up and down the stairs.
That's right. And again, it's a meeting place for those people to just run into each other and at least say hi to each other. And if they have some business to take care of, they can just use that time to do it. It's a very, very convenient and comfortable way for us to deal with each other.
And I've heard that the whole team will get on the stairs, and then you'll hold, town halls or meetings, whatever you call them.
Well, it's essentially a town hall. And in that stairwell area, we can fit all 750 chairs. Everybody is there. And so part of the idea of being egalitarian, because that's what we are, is to make sure that everybody gets information at the same time.
Yeah.
Not that it goes to senior people and then drifts down to everybody else.
Right.
It goes to everybody at the same time. So we call a stairwell meeting, and it takes 3 minutes to assemble everybody. They come from all over, and they gather around the stairwell. I can stand out there and we rig a microphone on that railing, and I can talk to the entire agency at the same time and do it very conveniently. We don't have to go off-site to do it. And so if we have stuff that needs to be talked about, it could be good news, it could be bad news.
Right.
Because we have to deal with both.
Sure.
But we're going to share with everybody at the same time.
I've heard you've brought clients up there too, and had the whole team applaud them and recognize them.
Yes.
Which has to be mind-blowing.
It is. And it's more than just a greeting, because what we'll do is we'll develop some sort of a piece of entertainment for that stairwell.
Right.
And it could be some quiz that where we involve the client in answering difficult and sometimes silly questions. And we're competing with each other, 752 of us against the 3, 4, 5 of them. We always win.
Yeah. I'm sure you do. So Stan, I mean, you have done some just iconic work down through history. The Tom Bodett was, and by the way, I didn't realize that was the talent, or came with the voiceover came up with that we'll leave the lights on for you.
Yes.
The Chick-fil-A with the, the cows, and I mean, endless the amount of clients you guys have really
And I
done
don't know
great
whether
work.
you realized it, but Tom Bodett is our voice on the elevators.
That is so cool. That's great. The only movie that you ever worked on was
It was the best picture.
Best Picture. I mean, so you have to read the book to get that story. But this has just been fantastic, and I it's going to sound weird, but I deal with so many companies, and I see so much not being done right, and it really is heartwarming to me to see someone that's for so many years has been consistent, built something, and proven that treating people like people, organizing a company around this equality idea, diversity. We didn't even talk about that, but you talked about in the book of, I want to get the biggest, weirdest mix of people from all angles
Sure.
and different things, because that's where different ideas come from.
Uh-huh.
And you were just such an early lead of the way work should look like. And I hope you get a lot more people like you had in the book tromping up here and checking it out.
Well, every time we have a stairwell meeting, or every time we have any kind of gathering, I always close it with the same phrase. I always say, spring much, let's go have fun.
Yeah.
This should be fun. If
Yes.
it's not fun, we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are paid for it is a secondary consideration.
Right.
Do it, and this applies to every function in this organization. If we're doing it, we should be doing it because we love doing it, and it's rewarding.
It's part of your very extensive business plan, which is really long. I'm joking, which you talk about in the book. It's just basically, can we have fun doing it? Can we do great work?
Right.
Can we make money? And there was one other I'm blanking on, but it's so simple, just those guiding principles.
Yes.
And I agree. I think simple's better, and you've shown that you can do some really incredible things without all of that bureaucracy and a lot of the red tape that is just such a beating for
Right.
people.
Right.
So thank you so much for taking this time.
You're more
And we launched the Global Company Culture Association to help drive an evolution at work because it's sorely needed.
Uh-huh.
You've got 16% of executives that say their culture is where it needs to be, and then they wonder why people are crawling in on a Monday morning and dancing out on a Friday.
Uh-huh.
By the way, the first time I came to your offices before with Jeff, I could feel it, and I didn't know what it was. I thought, man, there's something here. It's palpable, right? And that's just got to be so rewarding to come to work in a place like that every day. So thank you for leading the charge, and I hope a lot of people will read Peaceable Kingdom and follow your great advice in there, because that's how you build a company. So
Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate the comments very much.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.